5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm thankful today in the House Budget Committee that we're actually talking about taxpayer debt for the first time. I've been here a little over 1 year, and it's the first time we've talked about it. It's encouraging. But I'm also discouraged to hear that, that we don't think that deficits and debts matter when we talk about the modern monetary theory, and that countries that can print their own money can just take care of their issues, and we don't really have a responsibility. Last week, we had the opportunity to talk to the Fed Chairman, Jerome Powell, sitting in your seat, and I asked him specifically about the modern monetary theory. And he stated, quote, "The idea that countries that borrow in their own currency can't get into trouble is just wrong. And the idea that debt does not matter is also wrong," end quote. Additionally, we have more than 40 leading economists were asked whether they agree with the underlying tenets of modern monetary theory by the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business. 100% of the respondents disagreed or strongly disagreed with the economic principle. I don't believe that members of Congress are naive enough to believe in MMT as a way of servicing our debt. I believe that this is just a way to justify their multi-trillion-dollar wish list. They simply cannot face up to the reality that their free proposals like the Green New Deal, Medicare for All, the Green Housing Deal are not at all free. When asked about how to pay for these programs, they can't give a straight answer. Some just argue that we will. Some settle on the convenient MMT. This is not realistic. The Green New Deal, Medicare for All, and the Green Housing Deal are not realistic, and our kids and grandkids will pay the price tag. By pretending that we can afford these outrageous proposals, we're indebting our future generations to pay for them all. We've all talked about the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act of being just so destroying of our economy. Would you all agree that this year we'll have the highest revenues in the history of this country?
Not nearly as a share of GDP, which in my view is the right way to measure it.
But from a pure dollar standpoint, we'll have the highest revenues ever in the history of this country. Is that correct? It's a yes or no. I mean, it's not hard. You guys are economists, all doctorates, the last time I checked.
That statement is probably true every quarter in our history, except when we're in recession. The relevant measure is as a share of GDP. I mean, this is not a partisan statement. This is a CBO view. And as a share of GDP, we're collecting 16.3% of revenues in FY19. That's a historical low point.
So you know what, I've been here 1 year, what I would tell you that no matter what the revenue is, that we'll figure out how to spend it. I mean, would you agree with that as well? Okay, good. We got a yes or no on that one for sure. Yes, we will figure out how to spend it. There is no sense of fiscal accountability in this House. And so to say that it's wrong to put a little bit of money back in the people's pocket, because I will tell you, back in the hinterland, when you get out of the Beltway, they don't believe we can control any kind of spending. And to put money back in their pocket is not wrong, because they don't just go bury it in their backyard, contrary to what you'd like to make everybody believe. They go spend it in their economies. Their local economies, which pay taxes to fund their schools, to fund their roads, to fund everything else in their area, not dependent upon the federal government. Those are just facts. You can agree or disagree, but those are facts. You know, as we go forward here, I like what you said, Mr. Bernstein, about we have good debt and bad debt. In fact, I introduced a pro-growth budgeting act 2 weeks ago. It will never see the light of day because, contrary to popular belief, most people here don't believe that you actually invest using debt. And when we talk to the ordinary people in the world, the people that are not in this room, except for our guests, appreciate our guests being here, but those of us that are here talking at each other, when you talk about debt, you have some reasonable expectation of paying it back. That does not occur in Congress. You borrow money and you never pay it back. It's only been paid back 4 times in 4 years in a row, 97, 8, 9, and 2000. In 2001, a little bit. But since then, we've been running deficits every year, which means we're not paying down any debt. So we have a different definition of debt in this world up here. So I'd encourage you to look at that and give me your thoughts, because it says if we spend $1 or borrow $1, it's being borrowed and spent to actually grow the economy. I would encourage you to look at it. It's got a lot of reviews. A lot of people signed on to it. Not members of Congress, but a lot of people signed on to it. So anyway, I'd like to take a look at that. You know, as we go forward here, I'd like to talk about the Green New Deal, Mr. Ray. If it's not 93 trillion or 83 trillion, what is the number that we're talking about? Because it's getting used a lot around here. I know you guys, you see this and you hear about it and it's in the press, but in our hearings, every committee, 22 committees, has some component of a conversation of Green New Deal. Can you give me just your best guesstimate of what that's going to cost? Net. I get it, you know, you're going to save money and all that stuff, Mr. Taylor and others, but what is that number?
As I said,
It depends on what you include in the Green New Deal, and it could be about 5% of GDP.
So only 100 billion a year? Is that what you're saying? Is that roughly? Wow. Trillion dollars a year. Trillion dollars a year. So trillion versus 9 trillion. That's a big difference. I mean, because up until now, I've not really heard many people argue the 9.3 trillion a year number.
Yes.
That. So
I have looked at the 93 trillion number, which is an outlier, and they don't count reduction of spending on, say, the destructive activities.
So you're saying that the 8.3 trillion is what we would save versus spending only a net trillion. That's, man, I don't know, that's a pretty good return.
Well, as I said, that was an outlier.
Yeah.
Other estimates are nowhere near that number.
Obviously, we don't have 20 minutes to ask questions. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for your
I always
indulgence.
enjoy giving you more time.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate it. Thank you, witnesses, for being here.